In this video, I'm going to be giving you an introduction to one of my most versatile and used tools. It is a 3D modeling software called SketchUp. Before I build anything in real life, I first build it digitally in SketchUp. And this not only saves time because I can go to my shop with a detailed plan, but it also saves material as I'm able to head off bad design choices or mistakes before I ever make my first cut. The learning curve can be steep and a little bit frustrating if you're learning it on your own. So the goal of this video is to shorten the learning curve for you and at least get you going. Now, my videos are going to be geared towards woodworkers, as that is what I am, but know that SketchUp has a ton of learning resources available for plenty of niches out there, and those are linked for you down below. I've broken this video down into two videos. This one, where I'll cover the main concepts, the basic tools, and their functions. Then the second video, where I'll be modeling a woodworking project from scratch and putting those teachings into application. I encourage you to model along with me and pause the video in order to practice a technique. But know that I've also broken the video down into timestamps and topics so that you can go back or skip ahead quickly. All right, let's go ahead and get going. To open up SketchUp, just double click on the icon. Right off the bat, you're going to be prompted to pick a template, and you'll notice that under the templates are callouts for what measurement system is used in that template. This can be changed later, but if you prefer to work in a certain system, then you can choose it right off the bat. I'm going to be choosing woodworking, and since I'm American, I work in inches. When first opening up SketchUp, you'll see three colored lines. These represent the three axes, X, Y, and Z. The point they all meet is called the origin point. Along the top, you're going to see icons, which represent different tools that can be used in the program. Note that you can go to View, Tool Palettes, then click Large Tool Set to bring up an expanded tool icon set. I'll be showing you which icon is which tool. However, one key skill to learn when modeling is using short keys. So instead of using my mouse to click on the rectangle tool every time I want to use it, I'll be telling you to hit the short key, which in this case is R on the keypad. When modeling, I recommend keeping your left hand on the keyboard and your right hand on the mouse. I personally prefer to model with just the trackpad so that I'm not dependent on a mouse, as I do a lot of modeling when traveling. But I am certainly going against the grain here, so I do recommend learning with a mouse. It's much easier to show you how to navigate around after something is drawn in the modeling space. So let me show you the rectangle tool first. This is a tool that will allow you to draw a 2D square or rectangle, and you can access it by clicking this icon here, or by using the short key by hitting the R on your keyboard. You'll notice your mouse will go from the select arrow to the rectangle tool icon. To use the tool, you can click once anywhere in the modeling space, then drag in any direction and you'll see the shape follow you. You will click a second time to deactivate the tool, which leaves the shape. You'll notice that as you drag the tool, the bottom right will call out the exact dimensions of your shape. There are two ways to get an exact measurement here. One is to click once, start pulling in the direction you want to go, and then type in your measurement. Let's go ahead and make this a 2 foot by 3 foot square. The way to input the measurement is to type the first dimension, then separate it with a comma before typing in the second dimension. Now you can hit enter and the shape will automatically scale to that size. The second way to size it correctly is to click once to start the tool, drag in any direction, then click a second time to drop it. Now before clicking anywhere else, highlight the call out in the lower right and change it to read 2 foot, 3 foot, then hit enter. If you wanted to change it, you could always highlight it again, and let's just for practice, change it to 4 feet, 4 feet. Something really important to know about SketchUp is typically whenever we use a mouse and want to drag and drop something, we click the mouse, hold it down, drag it, and then release. However, you need to get in the habit when you're using SketchUp to click the mouse once, release it, drag it, and then click it again. So instead of this, it's this. Click once, drag, release, and then click again. It is a subtle difference, but it's an important habit to get into to avoid headaches when modeling. So to draw a rectangle, I'm going to click once, which starts the tool. Now I release my finger and drag in whichever direction I'd like to go. And then I'm going to click a second time to release the tool. All right, now let's go over how to navigate around SketchUp. There are three main navigational tools: zoom, orbit, and pan. To zoom, you simply move the scroll wheel forward or backwards. To orbit, you push in the scroll wheel and move the mouse around. Then to pan, you hold down the shift key on the keyboard while pushing in the scroll wheel, and this will allow you to move left, right, up, or down. I recommend go ahead and spending some time practicing moving around and using a combination of the navigational tools. Note that on the zoom tool, wherever you have your mouse located in the model is where it's going to zoom in on. So if you want to get a closer look at this top right corner, I need to hover my mouse on it when zooming. If you have your mouse out here or over here, then that is exactly where it will take me. Now I'm going to cover taking a 2D shape and turning it into a 3D one using a tool called push-pull. It's this icon here, but the short key on the keyboard is P. So go ahead and hit P on the keyboard and now hover your mouse over this top face of the rectangle and you'll see that it turns spotted. This lets you know that this is a surface you can use this tool on. Click once to start the tool, which grabs a hold of the surface you're on. Then either pull it up or push it down. You can click a second time to deactivate the tool and drop the part. After you drop it, you can click again to pick it up and adjust it, or pick up a different surface and do the same. Just like the rectangle tool, there will be an exact call out on its size in the bottom right hand of your screen. Let's draw another rectangle from scratch so that we can practice sizing things accurately. Hit R to pull up the rectangle tool. Click once to start it, start dragging in any direction, and then type in 2 foot, 2 foot, and hit enter. Now hit P for push-pull and click once to start the tool. Drag in any direction and type in 2 foot and hit enter. And now I have a perfect 2 foot cube on all sides. Let's practice a little bit by grabbing the top surface and grow it by another foot. Click once, pull in the upward directions, then type in 12 inches and hit enter. You're going to be telling SketchUp that you want the surface to grow by 1 foot. Use your navigational tools to orbit around and grab on this front face and shorten it by 6 inches. Click once, push it inwards, then type in the measurement you want it changed by. Now, when people are new to modeling, they have a tendency to take really short strokes. If they want to move half an inch, then they barely move the mouse. However, it is far easier to over-exaggerate in order to make sure the tool is moving in the right direction. Let me go ahead and show you an example. If I wanted to move this face half an inch out, I will hit P for push-pull, click on it, then over-exaggerate in the direction I want it to move. It doesn't matter how much you pull it out because as soon as you type in half an inch and hit enter, it's going to pop exactly to it. So when you hear me say feel free to over-exaggerate, this is what I'm referring to. Push-pull is what you use to turn a 2D into a 3D shape. It's also what you use to shorten or lengthen a part, but it's also really great for punch-out features such as dados or holes. Let's say I want a dado on this face. I can hit R for rectangle tool, click once to activate it, then click a second time to drop it. Now let's hit P for push-pull and hover over this new section. You'll see as you move your mouse around, you now have 2 options to use the tool on, the blue dots indicating that. Click once on the newest rectangle, then drag the shape downwards. You can either type in a dimension such as 6 inches, or if you wanted it to go all the way through, you can drag your mouse all the way to the bottom and click a second time to drop the tool. Something else to note about push-pull is that it has a great built-in feature that will snap whatever surface you have a hold of to whatever you hover your mouse on. For example, if I wanted this dado surface to go away and once again be flush to this surface, I could hit P for push-pull, click on this face, and then instead of typing in a dimension, I can hover my mouse on this surface and it automatically pops the grab surface to the correct length. I'll draw some lines here so that I can show you a little bit more. I'll show you how to use the line tool later on, but right now watch as I hover my mouse over each one of these lines and how the dado surface snaps to each plane as I hover on it. Another great habit to get into is hitting the space bar after you're done using a tool. The space bar is the short key for the select tool and will prevent accidentally using a tool while moving around. The select tool is also used for selecting things within the model by clicking on them. I'll hit the space bar now to activate my select tool so that I can click on the lines left behind on the surface then hit delete to trash them. Note that if you hold down the Shift key when using the Select tool, you're able to select multiple items at the same time. If you click on something you don't want selected, simply click on it again to deselect it. Another way to select things is to click and drag the mouse where you create a box around it. I know I told you at the start to get out of the habit of clicking and holding down the mouse, but this is the only time in SketchUp that you can do it. Everywhere else you need to click, release, then click again. If I wanted to highlight this entire part, I will click my mouse, hold it down, and create a box around the entire part, then release my mouse. Note, there are two different boxes you can create with this tool. If you drag your mouse from left to right, it creates a solid line box, and only parts that are 100% within this box will be selected. However, if you drag the mouse from right to left, a dotted line box will appear, and anything inside the box or anything it touches will be highlighted. This is a sneaky feature that really comes in handy when you have a built-up model. Let me show you the circle tool, which of course is used to draw circles. It's this icon here, but the short key to use is V. So hit V to bring up the tool, then click once on any surface to start drawing. You can pull out, then click a second time to drop it. If you want an exact hole size, you can click once to start the tool, then type in the radius of the circle you want to end up with. Not the diameter, but the radius. So if you wanted an 8-inch hole, you would click once, type in 4 inches, and hit enter. Now if you wanted a counterbored hole in a part, you can hit P for push-pull, click once on the new surface, and then push down, and type in how deep you'd like your hole. If you wanted a through hole, then click once on the surface and drag all the way down and click a second time to drop it. You can also draw a circle anywhere in the model and then push or pull it to turn it into 3D. All right, introducing a new tool, the line tool, L being the short key. This tool allows you to draw lines in the modeling space or on any surfaces. Hit L to bring up the tool, then click once to start drawing. You can use this tool to section off a solid surface to create new surfaces to then manipulate. For example, if I wanted a dado on this front surface, I could hit L for the line tool, hover my mouse on one of the edges, click once to start drawing, pull down until I hover my mouse on the opposite edge, then click a second time to drop it. Now repeat a short distance away. Now if you hit P for push-pull, you'll see that I can either grab the main surface or this new sectioned off surface. If I click on it once, push in, and then type in 1 inch and hit enter, I now have a recessed dado. That's an example of using the line tool to draw on a part, but now as an example of drawing something from scratch with it, let's draw a simple square. Hit L to bring up the line tool. Notice how the mouse icon changes to it. Click once to start drawing, then pull in any direction. Notice as you drag your mouse in the different directions, it'll want to pop to the different axes when you're close to them. You'll see the line turn either green, red, or blue when you're on one. This is a really handy feature if you want to do something like draw a box or draw a line parallel to an existing edge. If you stick to drawing on the axes, then you can draw a perfect square or rectangle. Click once to start drawing, then click a second time to stop. When you're drawing your third line of the box, you'll notice that as you pull the line close to the starting point of the first, it'll want an inference for you so that you can stop even with it, making drawing your fourth and final line for a square easier. And since I brought it up, let's go ahead and talk about inference points. Hit L for line tool and hover your mouse without clicking on the different corners of the square. You'll see that as you get close, SketchUp will want to snap to the intersection of the two lines, the corner. These are called inference points. And this is another subtle tool, but very useful for accurate modeling. Some different inference points include corners, edges, and even midpoints. The midpoint inference will allow you to find dead center of any line within the model. You can use the different colors the indication circle turns to know when you're on one of these inference points, or even the small call out that pops up. T is for the tape measure tool. And just like in real life, the tape measure tool allows you to take measurements of things. You click once on this starting point. Let's go ahead and click on this edge here. then move the mouse across to hover over the opposite edge. If you just hover instead of clicking a second time, a pop-up will appear telling you the measurement, but it'll also appear in the bottom right. To take a measurement on a different edge, you can hit the escape key to cancel out the tool's action. Then go to the other edge, click once to start the tool, then drag to where you want to measure. Hitting escape works on every tool in SketchUp. So, for example, if you're in P for push-pull and grab the wrong surface, you can hit the escape key and it will go back to where it started. If you're in the L for line tool and start drawing but change your mind, just hit escape. It works the same with every tool. Another thing to know and remember is there is nothing wrong with drawing something then undoing it. A quick way to do this is by hitting Control-Z or Command-Z on Macs. Let's go back to the T for tape measure tool quick so that I can show you another incredibly handy feature built into it. Hover your mouse over the edge and click once to start the tool. You'll notice as you pull away from the edge, a dotted line follows your mouse. This is called a guide line. And where I use these the most is setting up reference lines for drawing in features or sizing things. Let me cover how to drop them and then I'll cover a few examples on their use. You need to be in the tape measure tool to use them, so go ahead and hit T on your keyboard, then click once on an edge in the model. Now drag your mouse across and click a second time to drop the tool, and a guideline will be placed. So earlier I showed you how to make a dado on this face by drawing two straight lines just randomly. Well, if you want a dado that is exactly 3/4 of an inch wide and placed 3 inches off this edge, then setting up a few guidelines would be the way to do that. If I want it 3 inches from the edge, I can click on this edge once to start the tool, drag over in the direction I want the guideline to be placed, then type in 3 inches and hit enter. That will be the start of my dado. If I want it to be 3/4 of an inch wide, I will click my guideline once to start the tool again, then move the mouse out, then type in 3/4 of an inch and hit enter. Remember that over-exaggerating when pulling the tool is just fine. Now, guidelines aren't viewed as geometry in SketchUp. When you place a line using the line tool on a surface, that's added geometry that will divide this face into two. A guideline is just a visual reference to help me place the added geometry in the needed place. So now that I know where to draw my lines to have them in the needed location, I can hit L for line tool, use my inference point to let me know I'm at the correct starting point, click once to start the tool, move the mouse to the opposite edge, then click a second time to stop the tool. Repeat a second time to draw the second line for the dado. Now you could hit P for push-pull and be able to click once on the surface of the dado and push it inwards. Another example of using guidelines as an aid is if I wanted to find center of this face to, let's say, drill a hole. I could hit T for tape measure, click on this start edge, then move up. As I move, I'm looking for the midpoint inference point, letting me know that I'm there, and then click a second time on the mouse to drop the guide. Now let's repeat from the other edge, again looking for the midpoint inference, then dropping the guide. I can now hit V for the circle tool, click once to start drawing at the center section, then type in the radius of the hole I need. Let's type in 1.5 inches and hit enter. To complete the task, now I can hit P for push-pull, click once on the surface to pick it up, then move the mouse all the way to the back edge so that it pushes all the way through and I'm left with a hollow center. Last note to mention on guidelines. Right now it is a good habit to get into to keep a clean modeling space. And one way to do that is to delete guides after they're done being useful. Since I no longer need the center of this face, I can delete these guides. To do that, go up to Edit and Delete Guides. If any of the tools have confused you during this example, feel free to go back to the timestamps below where I've covered them and practice on them. Okay, now let's get into one of the most important things to remember when modeling, making something a component. When you draw something in SketchUp, such as this rectangle, you can see if you hit the space bar and go into your select tool that I can select this face independently from this face, or this line independently from this face. Even though all these lines and faces are touching one another, SketchUp is still viewing them as separate geometry at this point. So after you draw something new, such as this box, you need to turn everything that makes it up, all those lines, all the faces, into a single component, which will tell SketchUp that they all belong together. To make something into a component, you triple click anywhere on the part. Make sure that you triple click or not everything will be selected. I just double clicked and see how this here is blue, but nothing over here is. That's a visual cue that you didn't click enough. So triple click, make sure everything is highlighted in blue, then right click and say Make Component. This window will pop up giving you the option to name the component. So go ahead and name it Test1, then hit Enter. Now I can try and select just one face or line, and you'll see that I'm no longer able to. If I click anywhere on the part, everything is selected. This is your visual cue that it's been made into a component. Now whenever I try and move the part, it will all move as one and not turn into a mess for me. When you make something into a component, you can think of it as placing a protective bubble over it. It will not only hold all of the individual lines and faces together as one part, but it'll also prevent changes being made to it from the outside of that protective bubble. Let me show you an example. This shape is not a component, but this one is. I can hit L for line and draw a line on this face. Then hit P for push-pull, and I have the option to use the tool on either section. And that's because this line is part of this shape now and sectioned off the face into two. However, if I draw a line on this part that is a component, then hit P for push-pull, it won't allow me to use it on either one because this shape is protected by the bubble. And while you can draw on top of it, it won't become a part of it. Of course, there are cases where you're going to want to modify a shape after turning it into a component. Let's say I wanted to have a step up in my part here. In order to edit a component, all you need to do is double click on it. A good visual cue to know when you're editing a component is the shadow box that appears. Double click and the box will appear, and you can think of this as now being under that protective bubble and able to modify the part. So let's hit L for line tool once again and draw the line across the center. Now hit P for push-pull and pull up on one of the halves. Once the changes are made, click anywhere outside of the shadow box to stop editing the component. Click spacebar to go back to the select tool, and now when you click back on it, it's back to all being highlighted in blue, meaning it's back under that protective bubble. I'm going to go ahead and cover the move tool, then come back to components. The move tool short key is M, and it allows you to move things around the space. You click once to start the tool and pick up a part. Move your mouse where you want the part, then click a second time to drop it. One huge thing to remember when using this tool is to always grab by a corner or an edge. This is a little thing, but it's valuable for fast and accurate modeling. When you're in the real world and you push two objects together, you just stop when they touch. But when you're in the 3D modeling space, you need to be precise with telling SketchUp what you want to place exactly where. For example, if I want to move this box so that it's flush up against the face of this box, you'll hit M to bring up the move tool, hover your mouse over the corner of the part, then click once to pick it up. Drag your mouse over until you hover on this corner, then click a second time to drop it in place. It's very easy when you first start modeling to just pick up objects wherever. But to show you why that's a bad habit, let's pick this up by the front face and try to place the right corner flush with the right corner of the next box. It looks pretty good from this point, but when you zoom in and orbit around, you'll see that it's off. So to ensure things are flush and lined up, always grab things by a corner when moving in SketchUp. Pick up this corner and then click a second time on this corner to drop it. And now things are perfect. Let's cover a secondary function within the Move tool, which is the option to copy what it is that you're moving. Let's say I want to build some ledges on this wall here. Let's hit R for a rectangle, click once to start the tool, drag in the direction we want to go, then let's just randomly drop it at a good looking distance by clicking a second time. To turn it into a 3D shape, let's hit P for push-pull, click once on the surface and start pulling it out. Type in 3 inches and hit enter. This is something brand new that we just modeled, so before trying to move it or do any further modeling, we need to turn it into a component. Triple click it so that everything is highlighted, hit G, which is a shortcut for making something a component. At this point, I can hit M for move and click once to pick up the ledge and start moving it. However, I don't want to just move it. I want to leave one behind and make a copy of it so that it's in both places. To make a copy, hit M for move. Pick the item up, making sure to grab it by a corner, then hit Option on the keyboard. Now you will leave behind the original and only move a copy. Click a second time to drop the part where you need it. Now, if I were modeling this for real, I would actually use the T for tape measure tool to first set a guideline, let's just say 12 inches up from the first. That way, when I move and make a copy of the ledge, I can grab it by a corner and place that corner directly on the guideline so that I won't have to move it again. Now that I've shown you how to move and copy parts, let me hop back to the subject of components to show you yet another feature of them. If you remember, the first ledge was made into a component, and then we made copies of it, which turned into these ledges. Since we made a copy of a component, these are also components. And whenever you make a change to a component in the model, it's going to be reflected amongst all of its copies. For example, let's say we wanted to modify these ledges to extend flush with the wall. I can double-click the ledge to start editing the component and get under that protective bubble to make the changes. Now hit P for push-pull. Grab the face I want to extend and start pulling. Since I don't know the measurement it needs to be flush with the wall, remember that I can just hover my mouse on a surface when using push-pull, and it will pop whatever is grabbed to that length. So I hover my mouse on the edge of the wall and the ledge is flush. Now let's orbit around and repeat on the other side. Click once to grab the surface, hover on the edge, then click a second time to drop the part. Click anywhere outside of the shadow box to stop editing the component. All right, last thing for components, then moving on. I'm gonna hit Command Z here to back up so that all my ledges are short again. Let's say you don't want all three of these the same. You'd like the middle one to be short and only the upper and lower to be long. You can hit spacebar to bring up the select tool, then click on the part you want to be different. Right-click and say Make Unique. This will leave the part as a component in SketchUp, but separate it from the others that are the same so that now when I change this one down here, only it and the upper one will reflect the change. Let me quickly show you one last tool, which is the Rotate tool. This is the tool that can be used to rotate parts within the model, and its short key is Q. This tool is kind of unique as it's a 3-click tool instead of a 2-click. So when using it, I will click once to activate it, a second time to create a grab point, and then a third time to drop it. Go ahead and hit Q to bring up the Rotate tool, and you'll see a colored protractor symbol pop up. As you move your mouse around to different surfaces, this protractor will change colors to reflect which axis it will be rotating around. To use the tool, make sure the color of the protractor is the axis you want to rotate around, then click once to start the tool. Now move your mouse out along the axis. The length doesn't matter. You click a second time, then move your mouse again, and the part will start rotating. At this point, you can either type in the exact amount you want your part to rotate and hit enter, or you can hover your mouse over the tick marks on the protractor icon, then click a third time to drop the tool. I recommend pausing the video and practicing using this tool and flipping things around the 3 different axes. The first click will be the pivot point, the second click will be the grab point, and then the third click will be where you drop it. Okay, and I think I'm going to end it there. I would love to continue on. There's still so many things to talk about. However, this should accomplish the goal on getting you started with the basic tools and their function. In the next video, I'm going to be modeling a woodworking project using these tools. So if anything confuses you, reference back to this video, and remember that I've time-stamped everything for you so that you can jump around to the different talking points. If it's components or if it's a tape measure tool or guidelines or moving things by a corner, use this as your reference. If you're interested in learning SketchUp, then I really hope that this video has helped you out. If you're interested in following along on my next video, I'm going to be modeling a woodworking project that is going to be linked for you down below as well.